Today, the United States faces a $34 trillion national debt. The country is politically divided. And across the Pacific, China is challenging America for total global dominance. For the last 2 decades, the United States has been exhausted by endless wars, economic crises, and geopolitical tension. But what if the 21st century was completely different? What if the event that derailed the American empire was stopped before it ever happened? Let's go back to August 2001. In our timeline, communication failures between the CIA and FBI allowed a massive terror plot to slip through the cracks. But in this alternate timeline, the intelligence agencies connect the dots. A month before the planned attacks, federal agents raid safe houses across the country. The plot is foiled. The conspirators are arrested. It becomes a massive news story for a few weeks. The president gives a speech congratulating the FBI. And then, the world simply moves on. But that single prevented disaster completely changes the trajectory of human history. First, look at life inside the United States. There is no war on terror. There is no Patriot Act. The government does not gain unprecedented surveillance powers over its own citizens. Airports remain relaxed. There is no TSA. You can still walk your family right up to the boarding gate. But the biggest domestic change is the economy. In our timeline, the United States spent over $8 trillion on the war on terror. Imagine if those $8 trillion stayed inside America. Instead of funding 20 years of desert warfare, that money is poured into infrastructure, healthcare, education, and space exploration. The US national debt is drastically lower. The American middle class remains far stronger. Now, let's look at the global map. Without 9/11, the United States does not invade Afghanistan. The Taliban likely remains in power, but without a full-scale American occupation, the region is handled through diplomacy and localized special operations. But the biggest geopolitical earthquake happens in 2003. There is no invasion of Iraq. Saddam Hussein remains in power in Baghdad. He's a brutal dictator, yes. But geopolitically, his regime acts as a massive wall against Iranian expansion. With Saddam Hussein keeping Tehran in check, the Middle East remains locked in a stable, though tense, Cold War between Iraq, Iran, and Saudi Arabia. Because the Iraqi government doesn't collapse, there is no massive power vacuum. And without that power vacuum, ISIS is never formed. The tragic wars that destroyed Syria, Iraq, and Libya over the last 20 years might never happen. The massive refugee crisis that destabilized European politics in 2015. Avoided? But the most important consequence of preventing 9/11 has nothing to do with the Middle East. It has to do with Asia. In our reality, while the United States spent 20 years hunting insurgents in the mountains of Afghanistan and the streets of Fallujah, China was quietly building a global economic empire. America was distracted. Beijing took advantage. But in this alternate timeline, America never looks away. Without the distraction of the Middle East, Washington recognizes the rise of China much earlier. The American pivot to Asia happens in 2005, not 2015. The US military focuses entirely on modernizing for a high-tech conflict in the Pacific. Trade deals are secured early to contain Chinese economic expansion. Washington builds an unbreakable wall of alliances with Japan, South Korea, Taiwan, and India long before Beijing can build its military. By the 2020s, China is still a major economic power, but it is entirely boxed in. The United States remains the undisputed, unchallenged hyperpower of the world. Richer, more technologically advanced, and without the deep political scars of endless wars. Because of one prevented attack in 2001, the American century didn't end. It accelerated. So, what do you think? Would the United States have found another reason to go to war eventually? Or would preventing 9/11 have secured American global dominance for the next 100 years? Let me know your theories in the comments. And if you want to explore more massive historical shifts that almost happened, you have to check out the What If Book of Alternative History. It is packed with mind-blowing timelines that will completely change your perspective on geopolitics. Grab your copy through the link in the pinned comment below. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next timeline.